Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about some things that really annoy me in books. If you're new here, hi, I'm Fina and I create bookish videos with topics ranging from reviews and recommendations to discussions about tropes and trends that I see in the book world and in storytelling in general. Please remember to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so that you don't miss a single one of my videos. So we all have those things that just really rub us the wrong way when we read about them in a book. They don't even need to be huge things, but if you see them, it just lowers your enjoyment of the book by like 50%. You know what I'm talking about. It could be tropes, it could be narrative quirks, whatever it is, it's just annoying. And maybe there's really no reason that you should hate it as much as you do, but you do anyway. And those are the things that I'm going to be talking about today. 11 things that I hate to see in books. So the first thing that really annoys me in books is, as you know, dialogue. So this is dialogue that is just really stiff and clunky and is clearly only there to convey information to the reader. Basically, the author wants the reader to know something, so they use their character as a mouthpiece to reveal that information, whether it be a character's backstory, whether it be a piece of world building. They somehow decide that their best course of action is to put those words into the mouth of a character and make them say it in the most out-of-character way possible. I literally cannot stand dialogue that does this. I can't overlook it. I've just become so hypersensitive to this writing quirk that I will see it in a book and it will lower my enjoyment of the book almost immediately. Even if it only happens a few times, it still rubs me the wrong way. But if it happens, a lot, that's going to lower my overall enjoyment and star rating of the book. 99% of the time, this dialogue is literally only there to convey information to the readers. Sometimes it's information that the reader already knows, which just makes it worse in my opinion. I would much rather read an info dump about this stuff than have a character talk about it, because it just makes no sense. The omniscient narrator who narrates their life can info dump. Info dump the heck out of that. But do not, please do not info dump in dialogue. It's not good. So the second thing that really annoys me when I read about them in books is over-the-top villains. So these are villains that are just weirdly melodramatic. Basically, think that assassin lady from Crooked Kingdom. I don't remember what they called her exactly. Was it the White Assassin? Something like that. But if your villain is like her, they're probably not a good villain. Villains have to be people as well. They can't feel fake. And the problem with the White Assassin, whatever she was called, was she felt fake. Every line of dialogue was just like over-the-top melodrama, and it made it cringeworthy and unbelievable as opposed to making her, scary and intimidating. So every time she walked onto the page, I would just cringe. And that's not, I think, the reaction that most authors want their villains to elicit from their readers. They want their villains to be terrifying. They want us to be afraid for the heroes. So I think the cure for this is just for authors to develop their villains the same way that they would develop their heroes, and just really nail their personality and what they would logically do in a situation like this, and really try not to fall into dialogue stereotypes, because I find that's where a lot of villains go wrong. They're just over the top, mustache twirling in some of these scenes. It's not fun to read about anymore. It's way scarier to have a villain who isn't like that and actually has time and effort put into their dialogue and their personality. So the third thing that I find just a little bit irritating when I read about it in a book is out of character reactions to a situation. So basically, I'm talking about just when characters react in a way that doesn't fit with who we thought they were, and not in a good way. Like, it just comes out of the blue. It's not as a result of a character change or anything. It's just, okay, this happened and they're reacting like this. And we don't really see, you know, why, you know? Like, a character, you know, sees something disgusting and loses their lunch when we thought they were, like, a really, like, you know, stoic character who, like, just took it all in stride. It makes no sense, and it's kind of like, but why did that happen then? Like, it would make sense for another character, but not for this character, you know? Why are they reacting like this? And I think that the answer for this is very simple. Just have, like, you know, authors examine their characters, look at them and say, would they logically react to this situation in this way? And if the answer is yes, then all's good. If the answer is no, then you might have to rewrite the scene. That's basically what I'm saying. The next thing, which is a super weird nitpicky thing, is characters describing their hair and eye color in first person. This bothers me so much. If I see it, I will just get irrationally irritated by just this small little description. But it really does rub me the wrong way. I think it's just because of realism. Like, it just yanks me out of the story because it's like, why would a character be describing their hair and eye color to me? Why would they do that? It doesn't seem logical to me. I personally don't think about the color of my hair very much. I don't think about my brown hair, you know? If I flip it over my shoulder, I flip my hair over my shoulder. I'm not flipping my brown hair over my shoulder. Is hair and eye color really that important that we have to stop the story to just describe what you look like before you continue? Like, I don't know. Especially in first person. I don't mind if it's in third, but if it's in first, that bothers me a lot. Another thing that really drives me crazy when I read it in books is the overuse of bad metaphors or similes. I don't know, but it just seems like more and more good writing is being equated with the wackiest metaphors and similes that you can come up with, and it's not true. Your similes and metaphors have to make sense. They have to be logical. It can't just come out of nowhere, and there are some really, really bad metaphors and similes out there. You can probably think of a few right now. That bothers me because it's not good writing. It actually pulls me out of the story, whereas if those metaphors and similes had just not been there, I would have been fine with it. I would have liked the writing. But when you use these very outlandish and odd metaphors and similes, it's weird. It doesn't work for me personally. I'm not saying don't use metaphors and similes, just think about them and use them logically and use them wisely and also use them sparingly. Like, don't fill your pages with metaphors and similes because we don't need that many comparisons in one book. The next thing is something that is one of the most irritating things to me personally in existence. It drives me crazy whenever I see this in a book. I just like that book less just for that. And I can't forgive the book for that. And that is animal attacks. Because 90% of the time, animal attacks are written in books in this really nonsensical way. Like, it's written with no sense of realism at all. Most of the time, wild animals are not going to attack people without being provoked. It seems weird to me when there's just this random bear that just is walking past and it sees the character and it's like, oh, well, attack. That makes zero sense. Most of the time, wild animals are afraid of people. They will run from people unless their babies are in danger. Like if it's a mother and there's a baby and you're threatening the baby in some way, the mother will attack you. There are some types of animals that are more likely to attack people than others, but most of the time, wild animal attacks do not go down like they go down in most books that I read. For example, there was a book that I read, and I'm not going to name it, but there was a book that I read where the character is trapped at the foot of a cliff by these wild animals, And I kid you not, there were bears, coyotes, and wolves all in the same area at the same time. That's so unrealistic. Those animals would not be in the same area at the same time. Nature doesn't work like that. I really couldn't suspend my disbelief for that. I just did not like that at all. And those are the kind of animal attacks that I see so much in fiction. Most of the time they aren't as bad as that, but they are still unrealistic. Like, it's like, okay, please do some research. Most of the time animal attacks also aren't in there for any real reason. They're just there to add more conflict so that the book is longer. It's really not there for any other reason most of the time. One example of an animal encounter in a book that I really liked was in Sky in the Deep. In Sky in the Deep, the main character encounters a bear, and the bear just kind of sniffs her and grabs her fish and leaves. And I was like, yes, that is how an animal would react. That is how nature actually works. I felt so happy after reading that scene because it's like, finally someone gets it. So there are good examples of animal encounters in fiction out there. They just aren't as common in the books that I've read, at least. And I think YA might be a little bit more guilty of this than other genres. I don't know, but I don't like it. I don't really see the point of it, and I just wish authors would do more research about animal attacks before writing them. Another thing that really annoys me is unclear / non-existent character motivations. And this is just when characters make decisions that make no sense because their motivations don't align with those decisions. And sometimes I'll see the narrative try to justify why they made their decision, but it still doesn't make any sense to me because, in my opinion, you shouldn't have to justify what your character is doing. It should be a natural outflow of their personality, out of their own personal beliefs and worldview, out of who they are as a person. You shouldn't have to explain because we should already understand. If you have to explain, that probably means the decision isn't working. This has happened a few times. It happened while I was reading The City of Brass, which I talked about in my full-length book review where I went in depth into all of that, which I will link in the description box down below. And it's happened in other books as well. It happened in A Darker Shade of Magic, which I really loved, but some of Lila Bard's decisions made zero sense. And that bothered me. So it does happen quite a lot, and I wish it wouldn't. Characters shouldn't make decisions for the plot. The plot should be the character's decisions. It shouldn't be that the character has to do this for the plot to work. It should be that the plot works because the character did this and then did this. It's a small distinction, but I think that it's really important, and it really helps make the story more believable if the decisions that the characters are making fit with who the character is as a person. The next thing that really irritates me is Insta Love. I won't talk about this too much because I've already talked about how much I dislike Insta Love in my unpopular opinions video, but I really, really dislike it. It, again, is illogical. It makes no sense. I wish that authors who write romance subplots would spend more time developing those romance subplots, because then I might be on board with them. I might be able to get on board with the relationships that the authors are writing if I could actually see why these two characters are together. Why do they love each other? I just wish that we could see more slow burn romances that are actually slow burn instead of, you know, just a bunch of Insta Love. It's like, if you're going to write a romance subplot, you know, spend the time and develop your subplot properly, right? Develop the relationship, show the characters' chemistry, show why they should be together before they're together, and then we as readers will be more inclined to ship them together. That's my opinion. And I know that a lot of readers do agree with me. Most readers do not love Insta Love. They actually, most of the time, they hate it. Most of us love slow burn, and so I don't know why slow burn isn't more of a thing in books, but yeah, that's one thing that does really annoy me is Insta Love. Another thing which is kind of weird is romance in middle grade. And I just don't like this because the characters are just so young. It's like you have these 12-year-olds falling in love with each other. And like, it's not like huge romance subplots, it's just like implications. But at the same time, I'm like, you're 12. You're literally 12. And like, it doesn't read believably to me. And I'm like, these characters are still children. I can't get behind that sort of thing in middle grade. I don't know why middle grade doesn't focus more on friendships. Middle grade is way better for focusing on friendships than YA, but I wish that middle grade would just focus on friendships and just leave romance out of it. One series that had a lot of romance in it that is technically middle grade is Keeper of the Lost Cities. I've only read the first book, but I know where it goes. I know all of the crazy love triangle stuff that happens later in the series. And even the first book, I was like, this girl is 12 and she's literally in a love square. Like, what? I just didn't get it. And, you know, maybe I'm just old and cynical, but I can't get behind romance in middle grade. I just can't. Another thing that I dislike, which is totally a me thing, is wise old mentor characters. So like Obi-Wan Kenobi is a prime example of this from the original Star Wars trilogy. Brome from Aragon. I just don't like them. They all feel the same. That's my main problem. They're all the same person, basically. They just got a different name. I generally just don't like mentor characters as a rule. I generally prefer characters, you know, whose friends are kind of their mentors. Like, everybody teaches everybody something. I like that. There are good mentor characters out there. Obviously, I do really love Gandalf. You know, like, obviously Gandalf is like the epitome of that stereotype, but I just generally don't like the whole mentor stereotype. I don't like the trope of this wise person teaches the character how to use a sword. I just feel like I've seen that so much that it's just gotten so old, and I'd rather see like their friend teaching them how to use a sword. Mentors do have their place, but I personally I don't think they're as necessary as some books lead us to believe, I think. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. But I'm clearly in the minority because I know a lot of people do love these characters. Like Obi-Wan, I know, is a really, really popular character. But I just find sometimes those characters can just be a little bit pointless, and they nearly always die, which is also annoying. And the last thing that I want to talk about today is just romanticized toxic relationships in YA specifically. This should not be a thing. It's just, what is going on and what is wrong? Like, if I see this, it's like, dude, why? Why? Like, I don't even know what else to say. Just like, this is not okay. I'm going to have to talk about The Cruel Prince again. I know I keep, you know, talking about this book in a very negative sense, and I'm sorry, but I just really didn't love this book. And that was one of the reasons why I hated The Cruel Prince so much, because of the relationship that is so clearly toxic, but the fans ship it, and the narrative seems to be pushing that. I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way. It did not sit well with me at all, and this should not be a thing in books. Like, ew. No. Like, no. So those are some of the things that just really rub me the wrong way when I read about them in a book. Do you agree with any of my opinions? What are some of your pet peeves that you read about in books? Please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content. I post videos every Monday and Friday. I will see you guys again very soon. Bye.